Hi there, Chris from TotallyEV, and here we're doing a dedicated audio review of the VW ID Buzz. Now, if you want a detailed review of the vehicle itself, do check it up on your pop banner, down the description below, or indeed in the pinned comments. Now here you have got, as standard, a 9-speaker audio setup. At least at the time of filming and in the UK, both the style and also the entry-level life trims have got the same audio configuration. Now here you've got 4 audio drivers at the rear, whereby you've got 2 within each of the rear doors. And then at the front of the cabin, you've got 5. You've got 1 within each of the front doors, 1 in terms of your center channel, and 1 in terms of the acts as a tweeter on either side of the dashboard. It's found just next to the windscreen. Now, if you have a keen eye, you might actually be able to notice that there's certain cutouts throughout the cabin which are actually completely empty, be it the ones towards the front door or indeed the ones which are found in the boot, which leads us to believe that they might be potentially an upgradable option that comes in at the future. At least right now there is none said option, so we'll be interested to see what Volkswagen do with the ID Buzz later down in the line. And of course we'll make sure that we update this video in terms of the description if there's any further information that we attain. Now, unfortunately, Volkswagen hasn't provided any information in terms of the driver size or the wattage that we can attain in the stock 9-speaker system, but here, if again we get any sort of information, we'll make sure we'll pop it down in the description below or indeed in our written review. Now, for you to tinker around with the audio drivers, you'll want to navigate to the appropriate section on the infotainment system, be it on the 10 or 12-inch display. Now here you'll find a 3-band equalizer, where in our case we've added 1 notch to bass and treble and taken 1 notch off mid-range. As for the sound focus, we've left it in terms of center, and we've added 1 notch to the speed dependent volume, and we'll touch upon that further down in this video. Now, as for you connecting up to the infotainment system, you have got Bluetooth, whereby the SPC and AAC codecs are supported only, and therefore if you want higher quality playback, you'll certainly want to use Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, which are supported over a wired and wireless connection, whereby the former will certainly be the best out of the bunch. Now, past this, we get onto cabin noise, and here the numbers will be on your screen that were recorded by us using a sound meter. What you'll be able to note is that at lower speeds it's actually pretty impressive, although at higher speeds, at least specifically driving at 70 miles an hour, there's wind that can be heard deflecting off the windscreen, which is pretty flat, and then you've also got road noise that creeps in from the tires. In a grander scheme of things, it's not too bad. Although one thing we would like to point out is that our sound meter was not able to record some low-end resonance, which was present on the ID Buzz, like we found on certain MG vehicles, at least when traversing uneven terrain, or for example when you're driving around certain motorways. For example, those who live around London, you'll know exactly what I mean in terms of driving around the M25. Now, apart from all of this, we should definitely get onto a sound demo. Now, we appreciate it's not going to give you a lifelike experience, but it'll give you a little bit of a taste as to how the audio system performs. We'll be placing the camera and microphone in 4 separate locations and playing back a track. It's from Priya J and it's titled Like Me. Now, past the audio demos, let me get onto my subjective opinion. And first off, let me talk about the sub-bass response. That is the sort of rumble that you might be able to attain. Now, it's actually pretty hearty within the ID Buzz, which is actually quite surprising because as far as I'm aware, there's no subwoofer that's integrated within the rear of the vehicle, although there's that cutout that's there that potentially would lead to an upgrade option later down in the line, as I did mention before. Although here you have got the woofer drivers found within each of the 4 doors, and actually they do a pretty good job in terms of reproducing a good low-end response. Now, as for the mid-bass, it is actually pretty punchy and hearty and will certainly leave you excited. In my case, I added one notch to the bass EQ in order to get me a little bit of that heartier sound. Now, I did mention that I would touch upon the speed-dependent volume, and here is quite important because if you were to reduce it completely, you will actually find that the bass does get drowned out, specifically at higher speeds. If, however, you leave it at the default level 3 or add one notch like I did to level 4, you'll find that the bass tones actually do come out pretty well, specifically at higher speeds and also at lower speeds. So certainly a feature that you might want to enable or indeed play around while you're on the move, which is not always recommended, so maybe get your passenger to do that. Now, as for the mid-range, it is unfortunately quite recessed and pushed back, and you might be quick to say, hey Chris, you did reduce one notch from the mid-range EQ and now you're saying that the mid-range is kind of V-shaped. Well, yes, unfortunately it is, because if you leave it in terms of its default EQ, it will sound a tad bit artificial, at least to my ears, and therefore meant the vocal tracks didn't come out as accurately as I expected. So therefore reducing one notch in terms of the EQ added a bit more accuracy, but on the flip side did further push back the mids. Frankly, over here, if you just want better mid-range response, you'll certainly want to look at some of the alternatives out there on the market. It's certainly not one of the fortes of the ID Buzz, or actually most of the Volkswagen Group's vehicles, specifically the ID line. Now, on the flip side, the highs do extend relatively well at the top end, so therefore at the front and rear of the cabin, due to the inclusion of dedicated tweeters, you'll still get that toe tapping feeling and it will make it sound pretty exciting. Furthermore, adding one notch to the treble EQ doesn't add too much harshness or sibilance, but still bolsters that overall high-end frequency range. So it's something that I would recommend, but of course that very much depends on terms of your own taste. So what about when it comes to its soundstage? Well, here unfortunately it's a little bit lackluster. Yes, you've got 5 audio drivers at the front, 4 at the rear, therefore tallying up to 9, and in most cases that will actually do a relatively decent job, but due to the sheer size of the cabin of the ID Buzz, it is actually pretty disappointing. You haven't got that sort of width and depth that you would expect in comparison to some other audio systems out there on the market. Now, on the flip side, you have got decent instrument separation due to the inclusion of dedicated tweeters both at the front and rear, and therefore will still give you a sort of fun and exciting and lively sound signature. Effectively, what I'm trying to convey over here is for the average listener, it will certainly suffice, and as a result, it gets our Audio Approved award. However, for those people who are really into their audio, would consider themselves audiophiles, you might want to look elsewhere. Of course, you're not actually going to get the camper fan type of style in some of the other vehicles out there, such as, for example, the BMW iX3 or, for example, the Tesla Model Y. But if audio is your top priority, these vehicles will completely outclass the ID Buzz. Now, we'd be intrigued to know what you make of the ID Buzz's audio system down in the comment section below. And of course, if you've liked this independent detailed review, definitely do consider dropping a like, subscribing and hitting that bell notification, all of which would be greatly appreciated. As such, I've been Chris from TotallyEV, and I'll hopefully see you in the next video. Take care of yourselves, and goodbye.